Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. This is my first Care Collab of this year. It's actually my first Care Collab for a long time, and there's a good reason for that. Our organiser, our sponsor, whatever you want to call her, Nina, was having doubts about continuing. It's her story on her videos, I won't repeat it, but I did totally agree with the sentiments, I must admit. The reason for this is not to promote your own channel. The reason for this is to actually put information out there on a specific plant or group of plants or whatever for others to find, seeking information. By doing so, they may find your channel. They may find many channels. Yeah? So it's not to promote your specific channel. And in order to join in, it is a collaboration, it's all in the name, you know, Care Collab. The idea is that you make sure you mention the other channels involved, both visually and in your description, preferably both, but at least one. It's not difficult. And yeah, so that's the general gist of it. Having the hashtag Care Collab enables a group collective search to take place, and then once the videos come up within that hashtag, you'll see the various orchids or orchid types involved. Or you would come on now, wouldn't you? You just turn the kit off. So I was trying to keep my temperatures up. So that's the concept anyway. It's a gathering of orchid channels that come together for a specific reason. Collab, yeah? Right, and today's Care Collab is Dendrobium aphyllum. Now, the best laid plans, you know what orchids are like, they will mess you about. I looked back over previous years, and at this time of year, my aphyllum in one year would have already bloomed and gone over, and in other years would have been in full bloom. Is it this time round because we've got a Care Collab? No, of course it's not. But as you know, I like a story, and I think people like my story, so you're going to get one, whether you like it or not. And today's story is about my aphyllum. Now, many years ago, and it is quite a few years ago, there was a YouTuber in Italy, probably the only one, called Alberto, and he had to give up his orchid collection, which was a sad thing, you know, for anybody to have to do. And he gave some plants to various YouTubers. I got some, Rachel got some others did, and what was left went to, I believe, the botanical gardens in Pisa, whatever, of Tower fame, which was where he worked, I believe, at the time. But he gave up everything in Italy to come to the UK for probably, in my mind, one of the best reasons you could possibly have. To work with the orchids at Kew Gardens. Yeah. Yes, so he moved from his private orchid collection to, you know, one of the big collections in Kew Gardens, and all the research and everything that goes with it, and the displays that they put on. I think his penance for working with orchids all the time is he has to paddle around in ponds with great big lily leaves in every now and again. But anyway, one of the plants I got from Alberto was aphyllum, and it suffered in the journey in as much as if you confine a plant, you think, well, it might take quite a while to get there, I'll water it first. With the best will of intentions, there will be spores and various things. They're in the air. So anyway, by the time the plant got to me, some rot had started to set in, and the plant did not fare well and died. but I managed to rescue 2 kikis, and that's what I've got. That's what I've still got. So they managed to survive, probably because they were so young they had the vigour to push through. God, frightened the life out of me, a bird just landed on the roof. Can't they land gently, you know, clump. Yeah. Anyway, so that's how I got mine, and I've kept it going, but now the secondary story, the care. The care it's had has let it down badly. Okay, I'm in charge, but I moved house, as those of you who follow the channel know, and when I moved house and got here, I didn't appreciate the changes in the environment, apart from the obvious, quite a bit more light, I thought, because I don't need shading, so I must have more light. No. Why not? So that first winter, I moved in mid-December. That first winter, which is not the one we've just come out of, the one before, I'm thinking I've got loads of light. My dendrobiums that like the bright light in the winter will be fine. Yeah, well, they weren't. Why weren't they? Because around the other place, I used to have a shade so heavy to keep the heat out because it got the sun on it. So in the winter, when the shade netting came off, those orchids got sun through the glass and the daytime rise in temperature that sun provided. So for that winter when I moved in here, that was lost. They didn't get that direct bright light. And they didn't get daytime temperatures. I set my heater thermostat at 13 degrees and that's where it stayed. So they didn't get any extra help in the daytime. They were lucky to get more than 13 or 14 degrees during the day, as well as the night. They lost their differential, and for some orchids that is paramount. So we came out of that winter with a not very happy plant at all. We did get some blooms, I think. We didn't get many. No, I just thought, well, they moved house, change of environment, blah blah blah. I didn't take too much notice. But then we went into the growing season. Nothing happened. I didn't get any growths. My new growths on that plant didn't start till quite late in the year. Why? They didn't get their rise in daytime temperatures to go with what we call spring. The change from the bright, drier winter to the start of the growing season when the rains arrive and the temperatures shoot up. Didn't get that, so decided not to grow much. So when I went into this winter, I didn't have much to go on at all. And this winter I realised the mistake part-way through, so I still had that 13-degree mentality. And coming out this side of Christmas, so we're now heading, in towards this year, 2023. I decided to up my nighttime temperature, and I upped it to 15. So I raised it 2 degrees. And then after a while, I realised that I was only getting 15 degrees during the daytime. And as we headed out towards the end of February, where we've got the increased day length and everything, I realised I wasn't getting a rise in daytime temperature, so I started resetting the thermostat during the day up to 19. And what I've currently got is 16 at night and 21 during the day. Well, I haven't at the moment because it's cooling down. It's not a warm day outside at the moment, and that does have an effect. So I've decided that these winter resting type dendrobiums do not get enough light, because they may have, my Lindley is up there. It's 2 inches from the glass, and it's sat on the end of that shelf to catch a period of about an hour in the morning where if it's sunny the sun comes through the hole in the hedge, so it gets some direct sun. There's not a spike in sight on that plant, and there should be. There's nothing. Now I'm hoping that just moving it there might just trigger some blooms. So what have we got with aphyllum then? Southeast Asia, basically. It's a very common plant in the wild, actually. There's certainly no shortage of them, and consequently there's large amounts available for export into the EU via various means, I'll call them. But it's one of the orchids you can get hold of relatively easily. Now in the wild this can grow relatively low down to relatively high up. So it's obviously temperature tolerant within reason. So it doesn't like to get extreme cold, but it can be found in places that go down to 6, 7, 8 degrees at night, but not every night. And remember, those nights, pardon me, are only 12 or 13 hours long. Sorry, no, the other end. They're only 13 to 14 hours long. How long are our nights in this country? At that temperature, go steady. Don't chill them. They will chill in places like the UK because the nights are so long through those 2 or 3 winter months. So okay, they can stand those cooler temperatures, but not every night and not for long nights. Go steady what you do and think of where they come from and how long those nights are. But in those places where they do drop down to those sort of temperatures, what happens in the day? It comes up. And that's what I was missing. In many places where they are found in the growing season, their temperatures will be up minimum probably 26 and up around 28, 29. We're being attacked by long-tailed tits now. They just fly into the glass. They are strange birds. But they do it all the time. They attack the kitchen window, they attack these windows. You'll hear the tapping. That's the bird flying into the glass. It's the one in the vent beak. Funny little things. Anyway, so during the growing season, these are quite happy to take a bit of heat. With that heat goes humidity, not heat that's dry. And they'll be happy and they will grow. And when they're growing like that, you need to feed and water well because you are now in what is their rainy season, their growing season. During this time, they don't need bright light. What they need is feeding and watering to push those canes to get the maximum growth in the growing season. Now, their growing season is like, probably more than half the year. The growing season in the UK in this place isn't, because I don't get any sun, I don't get the daytime heat anymore. So there we go. They like humidity, but they do get periods of quite dry towards the end of their winter resting period. The moisture does drop right off. They are quite dry for a period of time. And I think that in the wild, that period of dry coming out of the end of the rest, combined with the rise in temperature, which reduces the humidity relatively as well, if you think about it, and the longer days is what triggers the blooming. So trying to mimic that in the other parts of the world, not where they come from, it's not as easy as it might sound. Anyway, let's have a look at the what is a very mediocre plant. And just to make me out a liar, 2 of the buds are opening. I won't say open. Right, so what's gone wrong with this then? What's gone wrong with this is a basal kiki. It has a bud. It still hasn't dropped its leaf. It's green, it's plump. Over here are kikis that I took off the plant and planted on the base. They are still plump. I'm expecting those to produce new growths, which will give me probably some medium-sized canes. The longest canes on here are the oldest ones. We have 2 blooms on this cane, which is not one of the longest ones. There aren't any buds anywhere else. And aphyllum is a kiki machine. Don't worry if yours does it. I've got a basal kiki here. I've got one here that has a new growth I've only just spotted. So this kiki is coming into growth and it has roots. So that one can come off and come up here somewhere. We have a little one here. I don't think that's ever going to come to much. And then down the bottom here we have the 3 big kikis, and 2 of these are coming into growth. Now when I water this plant, obviously I water the bit on the mount, but I actually dunk these kikis and leave them to soak for a while to make sure they stay hydrated. There's actually 2 new growths on that kiki, 1 each side. And then on this kiki we've got a new growth, and on the other one we haven't. But we also have a couple of buds. No, we don't, we have a bud, because the other one's blasted. So as you can see, that is a very poor blooming, and given the circumstances this has had, it's actually right. For the conditions this plant has had, you could expect a poor blooming. Now the only way I can get this back to bloom well is to get some nice long canes in the growing season. So that's what I've got to aim for. These kikis down here, these rather large ones with the good root systems, they'll come off, and I might even put them separate in an open basket on its side so that they can hang down, and try it growing it a bit different, and then see what happens with the rest of the plant. The base of the plant should produce some new growths and some new roots. But I mean, obviously I'll put a picture up of the bloom, but it did try. Sorry Nina, it didn't quite make it. I was hoping that, you know, at least a couple of the buds would be open. But given that I've only got 1, 2, 3, 4 buds on the whole thing, it wouldn't have been a good show anyway. Now the original plant that this came off of at Alberto's place, he never had it in the greenhouse when it was in bloom. He had it in his hallway where it got some morning sun, and it was probably at least 1 metre long and nearly 1 metre wide, and when it was in bloom you had a job to see the plant or the board that it was growing on. It was such a spectacle, so I was really pleased to get a piece of that. And one day, who knows, I may be able to grow it as well as that. But anyway, so that's the sad story of mine and why it is as it is. So how it is understandable given my circumstances. And I may have to just decide not to grow certain Dendrobiums anymore because I can't give them that bright light in the winter. Or can I? There is another way of generating your own bright sun for the winter days. We may do that next winter. But there's no point if I can't get the things to grow better this year. All of my resting type Dendrobiums have suffered. None of them are doing what I would call well. And the bloomings this year are going to be poor, if at all. I don't think Lindley is going to bloom. My Jenkinsey has got 1 spike, which will probably be 3 blooms, instead of the whole plant covered in blooms. So my changes here have messed things up. I'm adapting to those changes. But if you want to look after a aphyllum well, you need a cool, bright winter where it doesn't need any food, only enough water to stop the canes shrivelling. They don't need much in the winter. And then increase the light as best you can from bright to even brighter as you approach late winter, and stop that water. Just give it that 2 or 3 week period with much brighter light if you can, and stop all water altogether to replicate that period of dry winter that they get at the end of their rest period. And you should get the thing to burst into bloom. And then as soon as you start seeing those new growths, feed and water well. Get yourselves a new root system, get as much growth as you can, and then settle it into the winter rest and do it all again. But, anyway, that's my Dendrobium aphyllum. Not a good example by any means, but It's still alive, and as such I can still make changes and get it better. If it hadn't made it, then I wouldn't. Anyway, there we go. See you next time. Thanks for dropping by, and thanks again to Nina for organising, coordinating, emails, all that sort of stuff, and I hope it keeps going. It serves a purpose. Well, it serves several purposes, so good stuff. See you next time. Bye for now.